All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bad Bitch Academy. I am seriously super excited because I am interviewing Shamaree all about how to increase your sex drive. So before we get into this training, I would love for you to give us a little bit of an introduction about who you are and like what this training is about.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Shamaree, and I'm a marriage and family therapist turned intimacy coach and relationship expert for women. So I empower women to be fully uninhibited and fulfilled in their intimate and sexual relationships. And so today, obviously, talking about increasing your sex drive or your libido, this is a very common thing, especially for women. And I think a lot of it comes from not understanding that it's something that's flexible, but also not understanding that it's not necessarily going to be the same as men. And so I got some tips that maybe can help you so that you can increase your libido or even just normalizing what you're experiencing. Maybe you're okay with your libido.
I love that. And I don't know, do you have like your own personal story about how you got here? Like, how did you become a sex and intimacy coach?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm a marriage and family therapist. Always wanted to do that since like middle school. I love to talk about people's relationships. So I kind of turned it into my career. But having my own personal experiences, I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And that kind of changed my whole approach, my whole thought process about intimacy, but also like my behavior. And I didn't necessarily know it at the time because I was 17, and I didn't tell anyone. I pretended it didn't happen. So I didn't know it. But as I got older, like I started to realize, and my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but he kind of mentioned like, hey, you're not connected at all. And I started to realize like I wasn't connected to my body. I wasn't connecting to any partners. And it was just, I wasn't able to tap into pleasure. So I was just kind of there and kind of going with the flow. And I realized that that's not the life that I want to live. Like that's not, and I felt like I needed to do something to change that. So I looked for help, looked all over. I got help, of course, but none of them looked like me. And I felt like it might have worked in a different way because I still had to guard up a little bit with them just because they didn't understand a lot of things about me and my culture. And so I became who I needed. Because I know I'm not the only one. There's plenty of women who have gone through similar experiences, and maybe they are looking for help or they want help, but they can't find someone that they feel comfortable with. So I decided I needed to do that.
I love that. And, I feel like so many women can connect with that, even ones who may not have experienced like sexual assault before. But it's like, I've even been in the space where it's like, okay, I'm having sex, but I'm not here. Like, I'm not in my body, I'm in my head. I'm like, not really, and not that I'm not enjoying it, but especially when I was younger, like you don't have these conversations with your parents about pleasure and what sex should feel like. Like you just
Right.
think like you hump me and like I don't like you don't really know what a good sex life is until you know. You know
Right.
what
Yeah.
I'm really excited to kind of dive into some of these tips you have around increasing your libido. So I'm just gonna let you go ahead and start this off.
Okay, so I'm gonna break it down into three categories because when it comes to sex drive and libido, there's a few things that actually affect it. So obviously there's hormones. There's gonna be your medical or your physical body. So like if you have any medical or physical conditions that impact your libido, but then there's also mental health, stress, and then relationships. So when I break it down into how we can improve your libido, your sex drive, we have to hit all those things, right? And so the first thing first, I'm not a doctor. I I don't want to be a doctor. So I cannot tell you if there is anything wrong with you physically, if any of your specific medications are specifically impacting your libido. I cannot tell you that. I can tell you, generally speaking, a lot of medications, even like the common ones, the normal ones, have an impact on your libido. So absolutely talk to your doctor. They've heard it all before. They do not care if you ask them, is this going to impact my sex? Is this going to make me dry? They don't care. It's not a big deal to them. So it's okay to ask those questions. That's important. That's important. So first we need to rule out any of those things since I cannot help with that. Check with the doctor, figure that out first. If there are no concerns there, then we're going to move on to these 3 tips that I have for you. So the first category is health and wellness. So outside of the doctor stuff, there are some things you can do like for your body and for your health that can actually help with your libido. So some of those things are going to be exercise and physical activity. So obviously this makes you more in shape, it increases your stamina and all of that, so you can go longer and all of that sort of thing. You can be maybe a little bit more flexible, but the other thing that it does is it increases your hormones, like your testosterone, which we know usually helps with libido. So if you can be more physically active, exercise a little bit more, even just like getting good sleep so your body can replenish itself, all of those things actually help with libido. It helps with your body, it helps with your health and your nutrition. That also can have an impact what you're eating. I don't know if you eat like fast food or if you eat even soul food and those things, you feel tired afterwards. That is going to impact your libido. If you're super tired, you're probably not feeling super sexy. If you're super bloated, you're probably not feeling super sexy. So all of those things can be a way that you could actually boost your libido if you're super mindful of kind of those sort of physical things. And then there's also the opportunity for you to take supplements and things that you can actually introduce into your body. So like the ashwagandha, the maca root, and stuff like that. I, again, not a doctor. Talk to your doctor about that and see if it's okay. But those things are more natural products that you can actually utilize as a supplement as well.
That's so interesting because I've heard of ashwagandha and I've heard of those like mushroom nootropics, but I did not know that could increase your sex drive. So I'm gonna have to go check that out and try some of these supplements. And I totally agree with what you're saying of like, if you're feeling tired and sluggish and no energy and bloated, like you're not going to feel your sexiest. So that is actually such a good thing. Like the more physically active and healthy we are, the more we're going to feel sexy and have more of a sex drive. So I love that. It's like so simple, but also so important.
Right. And it's something we don't consciously think of. It's like, I want to work out because I want to be in shape. I want my booty to look good. I want abs or whatever. Like we think about those things, but we don't think about the fact that, okay, this is going to make my sex so much better. And it will. So definitely try to introduce some of those things and see how it goes after you talk to your doctor. And so then the second category that I would address is relational issues. So this is a big one because a lot of times people are like, oh, well, we don't have sex as much as we used to, and I don't know why this is happening. But then when you start to talk to them, you realize they've been arguing every day, or I've been asking you to do the dishes and you never do the dishes. All of these other things that are more relational issues, but they impact your mentality and your capacity for sex in the first place. So if you're having low relationship satisfaction, you're just not happy, you're upset all the time, you're mad all the time, there's a lot of conflict, maybe you guys are not doing the things that you used to do, spending time together, all of those things impact your mentality. And especially for women, we're a lot more responsive with our sexual arousal. It's not as with guys, it's very quick and easy for most of them to be aroused or interested in sex. They don't necessarily think too much about like the stressors in their life. They're able to put it aside a little bit more easily than women can. Women, we're thinking about all the things all the time. And so we are a little bit more responsive. We need good things to be happening. So like maybe you need to be doing the chores and like, oh, that's kind of sexy. Or maybe you're working on the car, like, oh, that's kind of sexy. Maybe you touch me a certain way, that's sexy. You get me something as a gift, or you bring home flowers. All of these things start to kind of get me going. I'm like, okay. And we're responsive that way. So if the relationship is trash, if we're not doing the things that we should be doing to nurture it and to make it better, it's very, very difficult to have a strong sex drive for that person. And so you want to make sure you're addressing all of those things, resolving conflicts, communicating, and healthily. So Even if you're communicating, you're arguing all the time, that's not a healthy thing if you're not reaching a resolution of some sort. So definitely make sure we address the relationship issues, any flaws or any constant issues that come up repeatedly.
Yeah, I can totally see that because as if you're fighting and you're not in a good place, like you're not gonna feel that attraction that like, oh my God, you're sexy with your man. You're gonna be like, oh my God, you get on my nerves, like get away from me. So it definitely makes so much sense to make sure that your relationship itself is that you feel comfortable. And I also want to ask you a question, like for people who are maybe not, maybe they're like in a new relationship, it always, sometimes can take a little bit of time to get used to a new partner. Do you have any tips on any tips when it comes to kind of like how to feel comfortable sexually with someone who is new?
So first, we have to have a certain level of confidence within ourselves. I think that sometimes, especially for women, unfortunately, that's who I work with primarily. We can question ourselves, we doubt ourselves, and a lot of times it's because we have taken such a back seat. Like you said, we don't have conversations. No one tells us like, hey, this is what sex is supposed to be like. This is what you should do. This is how it should feel. If it doesn't feel this way, then maybe something's wrong. We don't really get that specific guidance. So we just are kind of following along for most women anyway, especially. Most women are a little bit more passive when they're having sex. So whatever the guy wants to do, that's what they end up doing. Like he's orchestrating everything. He's saying, hey, flip over, do this, do that. And that's kind of, they just kind of follow along and mold to whatever it is that he wants to do. And so in that way, they don't always know what they even like in the first place. And so I always say you want to start with knowing yourself, and that includes exploring yourself by yourself. So even if you don't have a current partner, it's fine. You can still figure some of these things out. And I say explore everything. The skin is the biggest sex organ. Explore everything so you know what you like and what response it gives to you. And then once you know that, it gives you a different type of power. Like the empowerment, you feel more in control of your experience, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to communicate that to someone else. Even if it's non-verbally, just showing you like, hey, touch me here, like here, and here. That is a way that you can kind of show them. And if you feel comfortable, then obviously using words is definitely great beforehand, just so that everyone's on the same page. We want to make sure we're having at least somewhat of a conversation just to make sure that everyone's comfortable.
Yeah, recently I watched the show Sex Loving Goop, and that was so eye-opening for me because as I said, like we don't really ask ourselves like, what do I like? Like what turns me on? And I had to ask myself that question, and I'm like, oh my God, like I don't even know if I know that. So me and my husband have been in the space of really like exploring and communicating. And it's like, let's try something new. How does this feel? And like, it's really made our sex so much better because as we're having sex, like we're having that two-way conversation, because I know in the past it'd be like, you're touching me there, it feels kind of weird, but I don't know how to speak up and say that. So, really having that open conversation about like, hey, can you try this, or faster, slower, harder, softer, like really being able to speak and have that open conversation is really important. It is really going to change the game for your sex life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it gives you new ideas too, because if you express kind of what these are my interests, this is what I like, that's intimacy. People feel like they have to reveal something about themselves. Once, if someone's ever told you a secret, like you feel closer to that person, right? So you feel like you can probably tell them a secret now, right? So it becomes a reciprocal process. So definitely have the conversation. And if you are scared or worried, definitely use some anti-anxiety techniques, relaxation techniques, and start small. Start with small things.
I love that. Okay, what is your last tip? Oh my God, 3 tips. I'm like, this is not enough.
And so the last one, I kind of hinted towards it already, but it's going to be the more sexy stuff, the things that we're actually like really doing and getting into. So sometimes libido is low because we don't like the sex that we're having. And that's just honest. Sometimes it has nothing to do with hormones, nothing to do with your body, nothing to do with anything other than the fact that I don't like it. And so if you can actually explore, like you mentioned, having a conversation and then actually trying some new stuff, like different positions, different locations, different times of day, different positions, all of the different, like just incorporating different things. And people always kind of like, oh, I don't know, I'm not a kinky person. You don't have to be a kinky person. That's why I said different locations, different times of day. All of that can make a difference. You can do the same type of stuff. If you're a little bit more vanilla, that's not a bad thing. But just spice up other things. Change the temperature in the room, change the pillowcases, the sheets, try different textures. There's ways to do it that doesn't seem extreme if you're not an extreme. So definitely keep an open mind, but try the things, do the things, touch everywhere, kiss everywhere, and see what responses your body gives. Sometimes we are thinking like we have a judgment about something. So if it's like a kinky sort of thing and we're like, I don't think that I don't want to be tied up. I don't like it. But just keeping an open mind to even just putting it on you. So like not even necessarily restraining you, but just putting it on you to start, and don't judge what your body is doing. So we're gonna be like, this is crazy. This feels like I'm claustrophobic. Those are all thoughts that you're having, not necessarily what your body is doing. Your body might be aroused. Your body might like it. Give yourself permission to like whatever it is that your body responds to. And if you don't like it, don't do it anymore. It's not a huge loss. For the most part, if you don't like it, just don't do it anymore. But definitely try all of the things.
I love that. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and the woman was saying, so often sex is almost sometimes a little bit rushed. It's like the guy gets hard and it's like, cool, let me lube you up and fuck you. And it's like, there is so much power in taking it slow, especially for us women. Like sometimes we just need a bit more time to get aroused. Sometimes you need to like spend more time to warm us up and get us ready. Like we are not always just there at of a hard dick. So I think like as you are having sex, like really communicate with your partner, like, are you ready? And this has been a huge thing for me lately, is like really asking myself, like, do I actually feel ready, or do I feel like I have to keep up with my partner? Do you see that a lot with your clients that you work with as well?
Yeah, I love that you do that now, because that's so important. For women, on average, this is an average, so that means there's going to be people way higher than this and way lower than this, but on average, it takes about 20 minutes for a woman to be fully aroused. And that's not 20 minutes to orgasm. So like that's not 20 minutes sex. That's 20 minutes to be aroused enough to comfortably and pleasurably have sex. So men, like I said, it's a little bit faster, a little bit easier, on average for men to be aroused. And so it definitely expanding foreplay and being a little bit more creative with that foreplay, taking it slow, definitely helps to increase the sensations too. So it can be helpful for men as well. I think a lot of times they're just so ready and maybe they don't necessarily think about slowing down. But if you just be like, hey, okay, let's slow it down a little bit. Let's take our time. I want this to last long. I want this to last forever. Whatever you need to say, just to kind of like bring yourself back into the moment. And when you slow down, like things feel more intense. If you think about, if I just go like this really quickly on my arm, like I feel it. Of course, I feel it. But if I do it slowly, more intentionally, there's different sensations. So it's the same thing. If you slow down, there's different sensations that come up, and it can be a lot more pleasurable for all parties. It's not necessarily a bad thing at all.
I love that. I actually got a couple of questions on my Instagram, and I think like 6 or 7 women asked the same question, which is, I used to love sex. I used to be so passionate about it, but some big event happened in my life. And now I have no desire. What do I do, or what happened? And do you have anything to speak on for that?
I mean, it can be a lot of different things. So definitely when there's these huge life changers, like I said, mental health, stress, but also like medical issues and things like that, your medications, if you change medications, all of those things can impact libido. Libido also changes with age, like that is a normal thing. So as we get older, our hormones change. As women, we know this because as we get older, we go into menopause. Like obviously our hormones had to change in order for us to just stop having a menstrual cycle. So these things are changing over time anyway. And so it can be a combination of a lot of different things. But if we are having these huge life changes or these huge stressors, our body reacts to that automatically. And when you get anxious or upset, frustrated, any strong emotion or reaction to something, our body starts to go into the automatic stress response. So fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that whole thing. So as we get into those trauma responses, sometimes we stay in them, and maybe it's not as intense. So we think that, oh, it's over. That has gone. I've dealt with it. It's over. But it can still be present, just at a lower scale, maybe not as obvious with the symptoms. And so sometimes we are still in that. And if we're in that, we can't do anything effectively. When we're in a stress response, it's not evolutionarily responsible for us to have our higher level thinking functioning to that level. Like if you ever notice, if you're truly scared and shocked, you're not thinking about the fact that maybe you have to use the bathroom, maybe you're tired, maybe you want to eat. All of those things take a back seat because if a bear is chasing after me, it doesn't make sense that I need to stop and eat. It doesn't make sense that I need to stop and go to sleep. So if we're in a stress response or trauma response, we're not going to be thinking about, oh, I'm really horny, maybe I should have sex. Like we're just not going to think about that. So because it doesn't make sense within that context. So a lot of times when we have those big life changes, that's where we're at, and we don't realize it because maybe, oh, that was a year ago, or like, oh, we broke up and I'm done. I'm never going to do that again. Like, and we think that that's the end, and it's not.
So what would you recommend to kind of move through that? Would you like recommend just really trying to calm your nervous system and be in that relaxed space? Like, do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, so when you're having those sorts of reactions, if you can recognize some of the symptoms, so if your breathing changes, if you notice the heart rate change, if you notice like a temperature change in your body. So usually when I start to get anxious, I feel really hot. Even if the AC is on 60, I will be hot. And so if you can notice some of those things, or like the way that your stomach feels, some people they get like cramps or their stomach feels upset. All of those things are signs that something's happening. So if you notice those signs, you definitely want to make sure that you're utilizing some sort of relaxation technique. So deep breathing, meditation, and all of that. Those are usually really good ones just because you can do that anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're at work, it doesn't matter if you're at home, it doesn't matter if you're in the middle of sex, it doesn't matter if you're on the toilet. Wherever you are, you can do deep breathing. You have to breathe to live, so we do it anyway. Just being more intentional with our breath, doing that. And then also anything else that relaxes you. So if you have coping strategies, things that are soothing to you, making sure that you're incorporating those throughout your day, throughout your week, regularly. So don't wait until you feel overwhelmed. Don't wait until you feel stressed. Don't wait till you feel triggered by something. You want to do it all the time anyway. And that helps to kind of create a new baseline.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I have this one last question for you. So someone commented, they said, should I feel like horny around my partner all the time? Because I don't. And I feel this is really interesting because I think I want to have another video about like how your partner can really get you aroused, because I know there's this misconception for women of like, oh my God, I'm not horny all the time with my partner. Like, is something wrong with me? So yeah, do you have anything to say?
No, you don't need to be horny all the time. No, it's not realistic, especially in long-term relationships or when you live with someone. It's just not realistic. You can still think someone is really attractive. You can still think that they're sexy. You can still be interested in having sex with them. It doesn't mean that you need to be horny all the time. Like I said, it's just not realistic. We don't walk around horny all the time. ever, really. Like, there's always going to be a moment that you're not thinking about it. It's okay.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for answering all these questions, giving us all of these tips. And if people want to connect with you or work with you, how can we find you and what ways can they continue working with you if they choose to?
Yes, if you are interested in getting help, you tried things before, or you tried some of these tips that I gave you today, and it's not working or it's not giving you the effect that you want it to, I am now accepting one-on-one clients. So you can definitely work with me. If you checked out my Easy Tree, I have all of my links. So there's several different ways that you can get advice or guidance from me. So one way is I have a course. It's called Better Sex: Guide to Confidence, Satisfaction, and Orgasms Without Faking. So if you're the type of person that wants to do independent work, or you're a little bit shy, you don't want to have to tell somebody like, this is what's going on, this is what I'm scared about, then you can definitely do the self-help thing. I've done a lot of self-help stuff in the past. I get it. I understand. But you can get that. You'll have videos. You'll have tons of activities and homework stuff that I use with clients. So it's still helpful. You just don't get feedback from me. However, if you are ready to like really jump in and you are not someone that needs or wants to work independently, you want the feedback from me, you want the direct guidance, then you can definitely do the one-on-one coaching with me. And I do a 30-minute breakthrough call as an initial thing. It's free. And that's so that we can determine what your goals actually are and to see if we're a good fit to work together.
Thank you so much for sharing. I have your links all in the description. So go ahead and make sure to follow her on her Instagram. Check out her courses for one-on-one coaching. And of course, if you like this episode, go ahead and comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And once again, thank you so, so much for being here. It was amazing having you.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.